Hey everyone, this is Nikhil, uh, coming up with another episode, a totally different topic. You know, the topic that I wanted to discuss is about democracy for sale. The story that we don't see, right? So we are part of a biggest democracy, India, and sometimes do we think, and sometimes we get a question saying that is democracy really existent? Does democracy coexist with corruption? Yeah, exactly. I want to talk about these things. These topics are quite controversial, but yet we cannot just keep quiet without speaking about these kind of topics, right? Uh, so let's start off. So I'll just bring to you quite few instances, and I'll try to take you back in the story, like in the timelines, what exactly this democracy is, what exactly happened, why did this happen. Okay, so let's go back to 2008. So quietly, a decision a decision is made quietly. No chaos, no headlines yet. Okay, you see files moving around, signatures happening. Can we correlate this? Exactly, I'm talking about. We hear terms like committees, audit committees, approval committees, engagement committees. There's a lot of committees. So there's something similar. It keeps taunting, right? So it's like an age-old practice, where things just started. It's a very old practice, forming committees and blaming the committees, right? So a few companies, these committees, like they bring in few companies, like the a few companies like get access to something incredibly valuable. What is that valuable thing? I think you would have guessed it by now, but yeah, let me tell. The India's telecom spectrum. Yes, I'm talking about the 2G spectrum fraud. So at that moment, no one standing in a voting line knew. Did anyone know that this kind of thing would have even happened? No one knew, right? Voting line, whoever voted, they would be just thinking, oh, we have such a good India and all this. This would become one of the biggest controversies in the country. So, who knew that this is going to become one of the biggest controversies, right? And that's how most corruptions begin. Not loudly, but silently. Because corruption doesn't always look like a crime, sometimes it looks like a policy, right? The invisible system. Because corruption always doesn't look like a crime, sometimes it looks like a policy. So when it becomes a policy, people will just get confused. What is this? Yeah, there is an invisible system to this, right? We can call it an invisible system. Let me tell you something which is very uncomfortable. Today, most powerful corruptions today is not illegal. Yes, it's not illegal, it's legally happening. And it's well planned, it's engineered in such a way, like it's designed very well, structured and protected very well. So we can say it's not cash under the table anymore, but decisions taken above the table. So when rules are shaped by power, like who like let's just think of this. We elect a certain people. Like, can we correlate this? We elect certain set of people. The election, the executive committee. Let's go to a basic ground rule. We elect people, we call them executive committee. We give them power, not fully, but they start taking mm, a full access, and they start behaving like the government of India. So that's why I say, when rules are shaped by power, corruption doesn't break the system. So it becomes a system. So that's a problem. That's something that we are going in a wrong direction. Don't we think so? So, now we come to a part saying that the money that moves democracy, right? Let's talk about India's elections. They are one among the biggest and most expensive in the world, right? Uh, we know, like, our 2019 election, it costed more than 55,000 crores to 65,000 crores. So it was if you put it in dollars, it's somewhere around $8 billion. So that's just not spending. You just cannot call it spending. So any election, it will cost a lot of money because there's a lot of process. Because if you just take a paper and vote, we're giving power to people, and that power will get linked to our taxes, get linked to our CAM. We're giving them power to control that. So that has to be unbiased. It has to be fair. If that is not fair, we are electing a wrong set of people. Even fairness can elect wrong people. We know President of America, Donald Trump, he's fairly elected. What is the problem? I don't know. Like, you have to answer that. People call him a problem, and I say he's not a problem. He's the biggest problem. He's a pain, actually. That's, that's not just spending, right? So let's come back. That's influence waiting for returns. Can we call it that way? No one spends that kind of money without expecting something back, right? They just don't spend without. No one will just take 55,000 crores and just get lost, right? I'll tell they need something in return. People who contest for election, or people, see, it all depends on their own decisions. Why are they coming for? Are they planning to do any good? Are they ambitious about it? Are they passionate? Or is it just money? We don't understand it, or we cannot come to know, because people have a lot of blind faces. So no one spends that kind of money without expecting something back in return. That's for sure. And that something is rarely written down. Don't we think so? It's like, so people, it's not on papers, right? But we all know there's a lot of money which is being spent. So, like, we can call it this way, like, funding is the seed, policy is the harvest. So it all helps the businessmen to do business, to put your money somewhere, take it out somewhere in the name of policies. That's how government operates, right? They create policies for business people. Who funds this? Is a businessman who want to take benefit of this particular democratic process. So funding is the seed, policy is the harvest. That's the right way to call it, according to me. So again, let's come back to the, go back to the silent moment, the 2G spectrum case. I'll tell you why I'm talking about it. So the telecom spectrum, a public resource, which, it was under the telecom ministry. And who was involved? Let's not take names, but yeah, it was allocated not through one, it was like just allocated. There's no auctions at all called. There was not even tenders which were called. So can we recollect it to something? As there's no tenders which are called properly, like, these kind of things will definitely happen. Allocation not through open, it was not done openly. Auctions initially was done you know how it was done? It was done through first come and first serve basis. That's how the auctions were done. Uh, so this is how the system was working. Years later, an audit body estimated a massive presumptive loss of, we came to know it was 1.7 lakh crores, okay, of deficit. It's going to cost us a huge in economy, and headlines exploded, public outrage, debates everywhere about these things. And then years later, a court acquitted all the accused due to lack of evidence. They said there's no evidence, so we're just going to acquit this case. So that's one part of it. So what did we learn from this? So the thing that we learn is, in democracy, perception can explode overnight, okay, but truth takes years and years to come out, and sometimes it remains unclear as well, right? So talking about this, let's come to another scam, a very big scam. Let's see how many of you can guess about it. The coal story. Another file, another decision, another sector altogether. Yeah, I'm talking about the coal allocation scam. So here, it's a totally different sector. It's an energy sector, and coal blocks fueling power for all the big industries and all that. That's the power generating place for one of the biggest industries. And this is like allocation, and all this allocation was done without competitive auctions. Again, not proper tendering for years. For years it was done. Again, a government audit committee was established. But here an interesting thing will happen. I'll tell you later. So here again, the 2G spectrum in here has the same kind of fraudulent corruption that is involved. An audit estimated, like the audit body said, there's 1.86 lakh crores presumptive loss that was found out from this fraud case. This time something different happened. What happened? In 2014, we all know the Supreme Court came and stepped in, right? And then, all the tenders, everything that were allocated, it all cancelled. 214 coal block allocations all got cancelled from the Supreme Court's orders, calling the process arbitrary and illegal. Okay, two different scams, but one it was called out saying no evidence. Here, it was the Supreme Court stepped in and they said it was illegal. Good. Sometimes systems fail. What we can assume is, until institutions are forced to intervene, things will continue to happen, right? And people have to question. We need evidence for it. So the banking shadow. Now imagine this. You take a small loan, miss a few EMIs, and then later on, the bank is after you immediately, right? This happens to a common man. But they call you, the telecallers call you, hey, you guy, you've taken our loan, you pay back, and all these things will happen. But will the same thing happen to a HNI, high net worth individual who has taken lakhs of crores as a loan? Well, let's assume what happens. But what happens when thousands of crores are borrowed and not returned? Right? The HNI. Let's not take his name, but we know. Yeah, I'm talking about the Punjab National Bank fraud case. So here we see there's fraud, loopholes, delayed detection, everything happened. And suddenly the banks are left with, massive losses. We know, it was lakhs of. And now, now the thing is, banks they have lost a lot of money. Loses that, these losses, they just don't disappear, right? It's part of our economy. Who's going to bear it? It's going to become a ripple effect. They ripple through our economy. And finally, this whole thing is like when a system fails on top, the impact reaches the bottom as well. So, this is a kind of classic example. We also see the HDFC Bank fraud that is happening. Even that is not a small money. And when our funds are kept somewhere, and if the bank misses out on it, it's a massive loss for us. We cannot talk in terms of thousands of crores, but even a crore is a big money for us, right? Who's going to bear that? It was finally put on us. The interest rates increased. So can we say that it was directly put on us? Yes, it was, right? So what I'm telling is, your life, your reality, right? Our life, that's how it works. Now forget billions of rupees of scam for a second. Let's talk about our life, how it is going on. But someone else doesn't and still gets approved faster. When we are all in a proper order, we follow rules, and someone else gets approval faster, it's called injustice, isn't it? And you wait, you keep waiting. They already are into the system, they start managing things. You comply, they bypass. All these kind of things will happen. So, corruption is like, it's not always about money, it's about unequal power, right? Injustice. So, do we like legal, but is it right? We can question so many times, but here's the most confusing part. Not everything questionable is illegal, right? Just because we're questioning it doesn't become illegal all the time. Sometimes we need more insights. So courts, obviously, they don't work without proof, without evidence. But societies like us, we need trust. That's how we work on, right? We trust this person and we put our funds, but we can't go with evidence all the time. So if you see in our own society, in a common society, we'll see like uh, many elected committee members itself, the EC members. When we talk, like, we don't trust this process, what you're doing, we think there is fraud in that, they'll ask for proof. They talk in terms of court language. So, can we correlate that with what is happening now? Definitely, right? So, obviously, courts need proof, but societies like us, we don't need that. We need trust. If trust breaches, everything breaches, right? So, the system can be legally clean and yet and still feel deeply unfair, right? So that's what we are still facing here. That's what we'll face in future if we don't question. So like what you see versus what it is like a very big bridge. So think about how you remember these cases, right? So we have discussed about different cases: the 2G spectrum, the coal scam, the Punjab National Bank scam. So some became national outage, some fade away, some became political debates, right? So the common thing is, in democracy, narratives change, but consequences remain. So the truth is, all these are scams. It happened like in different years, different governments, different scandals, all different ecosystems. But one is what the common thing is a pattern. It's the same pattern, right? The common thing that we see is lack of transparency. So the decisions were taken without accountability. So it's discretion without accountability, we can say. So justice is always delayed, right? So we'll come to know only like the whistleblower will come and tell you like will inform the government this is what is happening, but we'll come to know the truth only years later. That's what has happened in all these scams. Initially someone feeds in the information and later on these things come out. So the deep line is The crux of this thing is corruption is not an event, right? It's a pattern. So we need to undermine this pattern in order to stop corruption. So, it's too much talking. Let's close it and let's think about it. So, India is still one of the strongest democracies in the world. If you see, we are the biggest democracy. So, but strength doesn't mean perfection. There's imperfections everywhere. The way people are elected, the way how narratives get pushed into people, how people observe, how our biases influence voting. So, how our emotions change, how people influence our emotions during elections. So, all this is a pattern we see. It means, but sometimes we'll feel, even though we are a biggest democracy, we are still getting influenced. So this is basically it means huge responsibility when we are carrying this during our election voting pattern. So because democracy doesn't fall in one moment, right? It fades when people stop questioning. You know, uh, the real danger is not corruption. The real danger is getting used to it. So, concluding with this, let's not yet get used to it. Let's start questioning what is wrong in front of us. So that in order to do that, our tomorrow's future for our children will be better. Yeah. So, signing off with this, discussing with a new other topic for the next topic. I'll bring up a new other topic to discuss. So signing off for now, Nikhil. Let's meet again with a new topic for discussion.